You're listening to the N2K Space Network.
And now, a word from our sponsor, SpyCloud, the cybercrime analytics leader. SpyCloud disrupts cybercrime by telling you what criminals know about your business and your customers, so you can take action to prevent ransomware, session hijacking, account takeover, and online fraud. SpyCloud constantly recaptures and analyzes new data from the criminal underground, including credentials, session cookies, and PII siphoned from malware-infected devices. With knowledge of the specific exposed data criminals have in hand from InfoStealer malware on managed and unmanaged devices, security teams can respond with a more efficient and effective process called post-infection remediation that fits seamlessly into existing incident response frameworks. Get SpyCloud's post-infection remediation guide outlining the 7 steps for preventing a malware infection from becoming a full-blown ransomware incident. Visit spycloud.com/cyberwire. That's spycloud.com/cyberwire. And we thank SpyCloud for sponsoring our show.
We're coming back from a 3-day weekend here at T-Minus Studios and noticed our inbox was full of stories from new space. Big development in hypersonics, interesting new progress on 3D printed vehicles and components, and ESA's 25-year-old Copernicus program? Oh yes, there's a new space angle there too.
T-minus 20 seconds to LOS speed rest. Go for deploy. Roger roll.
Today is June 20th, 2023. It's the opening day of the Spaceport America Cup in New Mexico. I'm Maria Varmazes, and this is T-Minus. Launch complex upgrades are afoot for Relativity Space's Terran R. Skyrora's 3D printed engine hits a testing milestone. Rocket Lab's suborbital Electron test packs a Wallop. European new space startups join Copernicus. And for today's interview, T-Minus producer Las Cruces speaks with Chief Corporate Development Officer for D-Orbit, Jonathan Firth, all about the company and their recent activities. And Alice brings us on-the-ground coverage from day 1 of the Spaceport America Cup in Las Cruces, New Mexico. All this and more. Stay with us. Let's take a look at today's Intel briefing, shall we? Relativity Space is ramping up preparations for the launch of its reusable rocket, Terran R, expected no earlier than 2026. The company has filed a permit to upgrade Launch Complex 16 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, moving away from the Terran 1 program. Relativity plans to construct additional facilities, including a larger hangar and new tank farm areas for storing liquid oxygen and methane. Initial upgrades could begin as early as this year, underscoring Relativity's commitment to the Terran R program. Skyrora, the Edinburgh-based rocket company, is taking significant steps towards its first commercial orbital launch using a new 3D printed engine. The firm is conducting full-duration tests on the engine, produced by its new, more efficient and cost-effective Skyprint 2 machine. Skyrora aims to conduct orbital launches using its Skyrora XL vehicle from the Saxavord Spaceport in Shetland, pending approval by the Civil Aviation Authority. The new engine features an improved cooling chamber, and each test will run for 250 seconds, mirroring the duration of a real mission to reach orbit. And we teased this one last week with some reporting from the rumor mill, and we're happy to report now that on Saturday, Rocket Lab successfully launched the first suborbital variant of its Electron vehicle, called Hypersonic Accelerator Suborbital Test Electron, or HASTE, from the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport on Wallops Island, Virginia. The payload was the first suborbital testbed vehicle for the Multi-Service Advanced Capability Hypersonic Testbed, or MACH-TB. The program is a direct response to the Pentagon's increased focus on hypersonics development and was awarded to the Leidos subsidiary Dynetics. The MACH-TB program is tasked with designing an experimental glide body for a series of hypersonic capability tests. The standard Electron vehicle has undergone minor modifications for HASTE, which can now carry payloads of up to 700 kilograms for suborbital tests. The HASTE missions will only launch from Wallops, and Rocket Lab aims for 15 Electron launches in 2023, including both orbital and HASTE missions. Now, this next story might not sound like it's related to new space. Oh, but it is. Now, I'm a big fan of the Copernicus mission, Europe's Eyes on Earth. Some interesting news about the European Earth Observation Satellite Program today. ESA announced that 9 new satellite data providers, representing Team New Space, are now part of Copernicus. They're the first European new space companies to be a part of Copernicus, and they're going to be part of the Copernicus contribution missions, which already have over 20 privately owned satellite missions in its cohort. The 9 new space constellations will be filling in some informational gaps from ESA's Copernicus Sentinels and add new multispectral, hyperspectral, thermal infrared, and atmospheric composition data to the Copernicus program in hopes of more effectively monitoring climate change impacts and to help businesses make smarter decisions to improve their own sustainability practices. And as this data is part of the Copernicus program, the data will be free and open for all to access. The new space companies from around Europe adding their capabilities to Copernicus are Aerospace Lab of Belgium, Prométhée and Absolute Sensing of France, Endurosat of Bulgaria, Kuva Space Oy of Finland, Constellar and Aurora Tech of Germany, IceTech and Satlantis of Spain. And one additional shout out to Copernicus today. The satellites from its Sentinel-5P mission kept an eye on carbon monoxide emissions over North America from May 1st through June 13 this year. And that's because, if you weren't aware, Canada has had a horrible spate of extremely destructive wildfires across the country during that time. No surprise to those of us living in the upper United States and in Canada who have been dealing with the poor air quality lately. Sentinel-5P satellites mapped out the carbon monoxide concentrations during the wildfires, and it shows pretty dramatically how poor air quality from fires, even high up north in British Columbia and Alberta, just kind of sweep down all the way to the southern United States. We've got a link to the incredible imagery in our show notes. It's definitely worth taking a look at. And now a story from the rumor mill about an establishment space company, so to speak. Reuters has an exclusive story today saying that Ball Corporation is exploring selling its aerospace unit for upwards of around $5 billion US. Now, Ball has been a major partner in NASA and NOAA missions for quite a long time. Not a big surprise that a company that works in glass is the go-to partner for the optics in massive telescope missions like Hubble and Webb. So why sell? Well, Ball is over $9 billion in debt, and while the aerospace work itself is steady cash, it doesn't bring in as much as you'd think. It earned Ball $170 million in 2022. So selling off a $5 billion plus asset would put a big dent in that $9 billion debt. According to the Reuters exclusive, interested buyers include private equity investors, as well as BAE and Textron. On the plus side, if the aerospace unit is sold off, we'll finally see an end to those tired old headlines that go, Ball? You mean the company that makes mason jars also does space telescope stuff? Unless you like those headlines, of course, in which case, I'm sorry. And now for some news from our international desk. The Swedish Space Corporation and the Swedish Royal Institute of Technology have partnered with Colombia's National Space Program. The collab aims to bolster Colombia's space operations, which include rocket and satellite missions, satellite ground station development, Earth observation, data analytics for climate research, and applications in AI and cybersecurity. Sweden's contributions will draw from its 50 years of experience in space operations, including its global network of satellite ground stations, and we hope for Colombia's sake, their unequaled expertise in meatball engineering. No intel yet on whether the satellites will be delivered as a flat pack. Saudi Arabia has introduced a scholarship program for students pursuing advanced degrees in space-related fields at the world's top 200 educational institutions. The scholarship aims to fulfill Saudi Arabia's aspirations in space exploration, aligning with the kingdom's Vision 2030 policy, a set of economic reforms intended to reduce economic dependence on oil by investing in various high-tech sectors, including space. This move follows a growing trend of increasing interest in space exploration among Arab nations, with countries like the UAE, Oman, and Bahrain also taking active steps toward developing their own space programs. Now, this next story is near and dear to my heart. The European Space Agency, on behalf of Greece's Ministry of Digital Governance, has kicked off an initiative to bolster Greece's budding space industry. 7 CubeSat missions, led by small and medium-sized Greek companies and universities, are in development to provide secure connectivity, telecommunications, and Earth observation services. The first missions include DeuthSat-2, which will detect marine contamination and monitor agriculture, EMTech, which will support cartography, agriculture, and land use monitoring. Hermes will demonstrate space-based 5G IoT communication services. MICE-1 will track shipping in the Aegean Sea. Optisat will validate an optical communications link. It will also demonstrate the use of cognitive cloud computing in space. PeakSat aims to demonstrate secure connectivity. And PHASMA, which is a 3 CubeSat mission, will use RF monitoring to provide space situational awareness. Development is in progress, with design reviews scheduled for this summer and final acceptance review due within 18 months. Now, the ground station wars continue. The Libra Group has announced its entrance into space infrastructure, establishing itself as the world's first company offering satellites, spaceports, and other core infrastructure on lease. Under the new arm, Space Leasing International, Libra's initial investment includes setting up a ground station in the Alaskan Arctic, catering to polar orbits vital for climate change monitoring, and plans to construct 20 more stations worldwide over the next 3 years. The first assets will be leased to U.S. satellite company RBC Signals. And finally, we've included 4 additional stories in the selected reading section for you to peruse. The first is from Breaking Defense, and it takes a look at the bad neighborhood orbits created by debris from ASAT tests. The second's from the New York Times, all about the mystery of space law, a topic we've covered multiple times with our friends from Aegis Space Law and Michelle Hanlon from the University of Mississippi. And the third is a piece from Forbes about the burgeoning space race among major telecom providers. And finally, a fun one for you all about not astronomy, but gastronomy, aka space food. You can find those links in the show notes, as well as links to all of today's stories. That concludes our Intel briefing for today. Stay tuned for T-Minus producer Las Cruces' interview with D-Orbit Chief Corporate Development Officer Jonathan Firth, coming up next. Hey T-Minus crew, our audience is growing rapidly, and that's a big thanks to you. If you're just joining us, be sure to follow T-Minus Space Daily in your favorite podcast app. And also, do us a favor if you could. Please share your favorite episodes on social media. It helps professionals like you find the show and join the crew. You can find our social media profiles in the show notes and at space.n2k.com.
This episode is brought to you by Palo Alto Networks, the leader in cybersecurity. As AI-driven attacks increase, organizations can't afford to have network security that's stuck in the past. Discover how Palo Alto Networks can help you predict what's coming and proactively secure against it with a zero-trust, AI-powered network security platform built to secure whatever, whenever, wherever. To learn more, visit paloaltonetworks.com/network security platform.
Our guest today is Jonathan Firth, Chief Corporate Development Officer for D-Orbit. He spoke with our show producer, Las Cruces, about the company and their recent activities. Here's Jonathan explaining D-Orbit's mission.
So it's a good place to start. So we are the global leader in the in-space transportation and logistics market. And we've been growing a fleet of orbital transport vehicles since September 2020. So what does that mean in terms of the problems that we solve for customers? It means moving goods, satellites, and information and data around in space, and maybe one day people as well. So the precise deployment of satellites means that they'll be in operation quicker for their customers. If they're a commercial organization, they'll start earning revenues quicker. We can host new technologies on board our orbital transfer vehicle so that they can be tested. Not only, so those companies can prove the performance for themselves, but they can demonstrate to investors and board members and stakeholders, that they're making progress. And we also have added and have been working with Amazon Web Services, computer processing capability. So establishing the cloud in space, which has been something we've been working on over the last year or so. So from an investor point of view or from a business point of view, what we do is launch an orbital transfer vehicle, and it has the capability to deliver satellites to orbit. But then once it's in orbit, it's going to be there for the next few years, and it has several tasks that it can do, hosting payloads, the computer processing, and a range of other things that will continue to earn revenue over time.
So you guys are based in Italy, but are you only focused in the European market right now?
Not at all. A lot of our customers are in the United States. So, as you say, our headquarters and production centre is in Italy. We're near Lake Como in Lombardy in North Italy. Our UK company is based at Harwell, and that's particularly focused on the cloud business line. We have a Portugal company that's located in Lisbon, and that's mainly focused on our mission control software and how we can make that into a business. And we have a small commercial hub in the United States on the East Coast. And, in the future, that's certainly, one of the markets that we want to grow in.
So I see deorbit comes up quite a lot when European Space Agency is talking about contracts that have gone out. How important are those contracts for helping deorbit grow and develop as a company?
Yeah, definitely. European Space Agency, ESA, have been supportive to the European ecosystem generally, including to deorbit. And we've been working with them for a number of years now, as many, young American companies work with NASA and, the equivalent in all the different geographies. So in the case of the European Space Agency, we've just won a contract, an Earth observation project. So it's satellite as a service. It's using the capability of our satellite carrier in space to do jobs, for customers, be it in this particular case Earth observation, but similarly they can do telecoms, Internet of Things, navigation, synthetic aperture radar, various uses, and so that's with the Italian government and also with ESA as the partner. And also we have a cloud project that's just been awarded and signed with ESA also. So that's establishing intelligent nodes in space, because each satellite carrier that we launch is a node on this network of, cloud data processing in space, edge computing on each vehicle, but then the whole sum of parts coming together as a cloud service.
So you guys obviously don't provide the launch vehicles. You tend to go out with the Ariane 5, I believe, so far. And I believe you're part of the latest Ariane 5 launch that's coming up. And it's your 5th tug mission this year?
Well, in fact, we have launched with Ariane. So our first Ion satellite carrier was carried into space in September 2020 by Ariane. But in fact, the latest mission is with SpaceX. And we've been doing a lot of our launches either from Florida or California over the last couple of years. And, we've established a good working relationship with SpaceX, and quite a number of the customers that we're flying, their satellites are coming from the US, and so they can be integrated at our facility on site. They don't have to go all the way to Italy to get put in our carrier to get taken all the way back. So yes, as you say, this is the 11th mission of the satellite carrier since the first one in September 2020. It's our 5th one of 2023 so far, so we're going at a rapid pace. And it's got a whole range of, it's typical really in terms of the different customers that we're carrying and the types of technology that they're putting into space or testing. It covers a range of different types of customers with traditional aerospace, and the new space companies who, in some cases, are still testing their technology to raise funds, to close their business case, and also government and institutional customers as well.
So tell me a little bit about what attracted you to deorbit and what your role has really developed into. What's it been like working for them?
It's been great. I mean, I really enjoyed my time working in the States. I was there for nearly 5 years. And then when I decided to come back and work in Europe, there were various companies that I spoke to. And the thing about deorbit that really sort of captured, they were at that early stage. There were 60 people at that stage just about 3.5 years ago. And they were developing, their technology on a very lean basis and raising very little funding, if you compare it, with equivalent, size organizations in the US, for example, or in other markets. And I just saw this really, the potential of the technology, to solve, different problems. They were really sort of market focused and really thinking about what customers needed, established, satellite operators, be it in geostationary orbit or in low Earth orbit, but also the new organizations that were coming along. So the way they developed the company was not by raising a lot of money, it was by identifying a market that they could service, making revenue there, and that enabled them to move along and widen out in as the market expanded. So it was that sort of pragmatic commercial approach that I really liked, and international as well. So continuing to work with people in the US, but also in many other countries around the world. I've been just today, for example, I've been speaking to people in North America, Asia, the Middle East, and that's a typical day, really. So there was that as well. It was an opportunity to apply my experience as well. I've gained some experience and some knowledge, and it was an opportunity to apply that. And I really liked the roadmap that they had sort of identified, for the future. And it was not sort of pragmatic, it must be this way. It was pragmatic in the sense of this is how we think it's going to develop. And, we'll use this roadmap as a filter to see, if we're on the right track. And then if the market changes, we can flex with it.
So you sort of touched on it a little bit earlier in our conversation, and I know your background is in human transportation. What is deorbit thinking about when it comes to possibly taking humans to space in the future?
I think, that's for us, that's some far, way off, but, I wouldn't rule it out. But, the thing that we're focused on at the moment and the things that we see coming next are, what are occupying most of our efforts. So having established the transportation business and, that being operating now for nearly 3 years, and then adding that layer of services that we can provide once our satellite carrier is in space, we can combine all of that. We've proven a lot of the technologies that allow us to play in a market that's just developing now called in-orbit servicing. And so you often hear about active debris removal as being an element of that. But from our point of view, it's also, the many satellites that are already in space and then many satellites that are going to join them in space will need some sort of, if you want to call it, a roadside assistance type of service. So they'll need rescuing, they'll need repositioning, refueling, close inspection. We'll need to rendezvous and dock, with some of them. And we can provide that roadside assistance service. And a lot, probably about 80% of the technology that is required to do that has already been proven, on the many missions that we've now done in space.
We'll be right back.
Now, a word from our sponsor, the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute, currently seeking qualified applicants for its innovative Master of Science in Security Informatics degree program. Study alongside world-class interdisciplinary experts and gain unparalleled educational, research, and professional experience in information security and assurance. Interested U.S. citizens should consider the National Science Foundation's CyberCore Scholarship for Service program, which covers tuition and a $6,000 annual professional development allowance, as well as providing a $37,000 additional annual stipend. Apply for the scholarship and the fall semester by March 1st. Learn more at cs.jhu.edu/MSSI.
This is Las Cruces, T-Minus Space Daily producer, and for this week, roving reporter in New Mexico. I'm covering events at the 2023 Spaceport America Cup, the world's largest student rocket engineering competition. The teams have all registered their participation in the event, which opened today at the Las Cruces Convention Center. Judges are marking the teams on their engineering knowledge, safety standards, and in some cases, their payloads. So we're going to start off there, and sounds good. This is the final day to evaluate their rocket designs before going out to Spaceport America to launch the vehicles.
Hello, this is Chris Lopez, Director of Site Operations at Spaceport America. You know, this competition is really a symbol of what the next evolution is for the industry. Spaceport America was created to grow the commercial space industry in New Mexico, and this competition really is just one small part of that, showing the next generation of business leaders, of inventors, of innovators. And so this competition means a lot to Spaceport America because it helps grow the industry, but it's also future folks that may start businesses here in our region.
I caught up with some of the teams to find out about their rockets.
Hi, I'm Julia Bowden. I'm part of the New Mexico State University rocketry team named Atomic Aggies. I am one of this year's recovery leads. One of the things I'm most excited for is to see our rocket hit apogee and see our parachutes come out. I think everyone else is looking forward to our payload, which is a rover that'll be depositing green chili seeds.
Oh my gosh. 116 teams, over 1,600 participants are representing 20 different countries as part of the competition this year.
My name is Marcin Jasiukowicz. I'm from Team 27, Simlay Simba from Gdańsk University of Technology in Poland. We're coming all the way from Europe. It took us a long way, and we're happy to be here. We are flying at 10,000 feet, also known as 3 kilometers altitude, and we are flying a hybrid rocket engine, which is student research and design by us.
The team from Chennai, India, told us why student rocket groups are important for their country.
I'm Ishan Mankodi, and I'm from IIT Madras. In India, we feel the regulations are still not yet there. Our space program was only very recently privatized. If you compare it with USA, they have very well-established private companies. But definitely the government policies as well as the student teams and universities are taking up the initiative to make rocketry and model rocketry more popular in India. And we feel that is taking effect. So this year we have, 4 or 5 plus Indian teams who have been doing well in both satellite and rocketry-based competitions. So yeah, it's picking up.
T-Minus Space will be part of the live stream of the launch days for the competition, which starts tomorrow, June 21st, at Spaceport America's launch facility. We will bring you updates on all the team's performances throughout the week.
And that's it for T-Minus for June 20th, 2023. For additional resources from today's report, check out our show notes at space.n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K and podcasts like T-Minus are part of the daily routine of many of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. This episode was produced by Las Cruces, mixing by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester, with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Brandon Karpf. Our chief intelligence officer is Eric Tillman, and I'm Maria Varmazis. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow.
T-minus.